Let's get started with my first Christmas drawing for this year, and I found something so fun to draw. I'm going to draw today a little Lego Santa. I think he is absolutely adorable. So I'll talk you through the process that I went through to create this drawing. The main things to really focus on is making sure to get some really crisp outlines because it is a Lego man. He's a very specific and perfect shape, and I do want it to be as accurate as possible. Now, before I get started with the drawing, if you do want to draw this with me in a lot more detail, it is available on my Patreon. I have loads of different tutorials of lots of different subject matters, and I also have a lot of Christmas themed drawings. So do check out these as well. For every tutorial, I include really in-depth instructions, all of the real-time footage, details of all of the colors that I'm using, sketch outlines, and of course the reference photo. I have a mixture of shorter drawings like this one and some longer drawings with wow factor. Check out the link in the description. So generally speaking, I want to go about this in the way that I usually would. I want to be starting from the lighter colors and gradually working my way towards the darker colors. So I'm looking to begin with for the lightest color in each section. And I do want to work on this one section at a time. So starting off on the red areas of the drawing, the lightest colors that I can see in these sections are actually more of a pink. So I'm going to work my way around all of the red areas, mapping in anywhere where I can see a little hint of pink. This is literally the pink pencil in my set. Now, in terms of how I'm putting the pencil down, the most important thing I want to do is put it down nice and lightly. I don't want to be pressing really hard here. I'm going to need to build up a lot of pencil in a lot of different layers. So notice how I'm holding the pencil quite far back. I'm not holding it as far back as I maybe at other times would, because I do still want to have good control over where the pencil's going, but I'm not holding it really close to the tip. I'm also trying to get the pencil down as smoothly as I can. So where possible, rather than scribbling back and forth, I'm working in circular motions. So you can see here I'm making little circles on the paper, or maybe more oval motions, to try and get this down as smoothly and lightly as possible. Now, to begin with, it looks a little bit peculiar because we're only mapping in these absolute lighter areas, but bit by bit we're going to start getting our bearings and mapping out the key shapes, and it's going to start looking like a Lego Santa reasonably quickly. So now I'm happy with all of these lightest areas. I can start mapping in some of the darker areas, and I'm literally just moved on to a bright red. And what I want to do is work my way generally from the left to the right, putting this red down on any red area that doesn't need to remain that pink. Now, because I'm pressing really nice and lightly with this pencil, it's not looking as vibrant as it could if we pressed harder, but I don't want to get to that point yet. You'll see here I'm working my way around all of the black shapes that are painted onto the Santa's jacket. So marking out the outline first, I find this is easiest. And then once I've got the outlines of all the shapes mapped in, I can then use those circular motions in the same way that I did with the pink to block in all of the red. And I'm literally doing this for all of the red sections. And then when I've got something down on each area of the red, I can then start working my way through some of the other colors and some of the other sections. So the next particularly prominent area I want to fill in next is the white area. And actually, when I really look at the white area, the lightest color in that section isn't really a white. I'd say it's more of a very light cool gray. So what I'm going to do is take this cool gray, and I'm going to, once again, as smoothly as possible, block it into any areas that are that white color. So the bobble of the hat here, the rim of the hat around the edge, the fluffy area, and I can also block this in on the beard and the hands, and some of the printed areas on the body of the Santa. Now, once again, I'm working in circular motions, working really nice and lightly, and I am still holding the pencil quite far back to stop me from being able to press too hard. With this pencil, you'll see it is a well-used pencil, and therefore it's got a pencil extender, so I can hold the pencil further back, certainly without it being extremely uncomfortable. Once I've blocked in all of those white areas, I can then block in the lightest color I can see on the face. So that is this pretty vibrant vibrant yellow, and I want to do exactly the same to the sack, blocking that in with a light brown. And then I've got my absolute lightest colours in each section mapped in. I've got something down, I can make out the key shapes of Santa, and from here what I want to do is build upon those shapes. So I'm generally going to work from these lightest colours towards the darker colours, working through each section at a time. So I'm focusing at this point on the face. The face is much darker actually than that yellow that I've put down, particularly around the edges. So let's use this brown to map in the shapes around the edge of the face, and that's making the outside of the face stand out a little bit from the beard. You can start to see what is needing to go where in this area. I can then start mapping in the shapes on the white sections. So we put down a light base layer with the light grey. I can now use the mid-tone cool grey to map in all of the key shapes that I've got here. So on the beard, there's actually quite a lot of kind of curved shapes. I want to map those in and also add some general shading to make the whole beard look a lot darker. And although it looks a little bit peculiar, it's not looking right at all at this point, it will all come together. Let's fill in the shapes on the hands. In some areas, they are really very dark, and we need to add in this shading so that you can see the claw shape that we need them to end up being. So let's focus a little bit on the red sections now, and I want to be using a darker red than the red I used a second ago. And I'm using this again to map in all of the key shapes on the hat. So I'm looking for any area which is darker than the very lightest reds. And I can begin mapping in the shape. It's beginning to give Santa some sort of shapes. I can then move on to a darker reddish brown, go over any areas that are this color or darker. And with every color that I add in, there's less that I need to go over because I'm only going over this color or darker. And it's really looking so much clearer what needs to go where. This is all part of me getting my bearings on the shape that he needs to be. Now, before I go much further, I'm actually going to take a minute to jump to the very darkest color and fill in all of the black areas. So because with the printed shapes on the body here, they are a black, I think it's going to be much easier to work out the right red for each section if I've already filled in the black. It will just make everything much clearer. So once again, I'm filling in the edges of these shapes and then using circular motions to block this in with the black. And I'm also going to use the black to go over the shoes at the bottom. And I think this is very much now looking like a Santa, but more than anything, it's just not looking dark enough. It's not looking vibrant enough. It hasn't got enough contrast. So let's keep working as we were from the lighter colors towards the darker colors. And I'm going to go through this a little bit faster now. So I want to go over the darker areas on any white section with this much darker cool grey, going over a lot of the shapes that I've already mapped in with that lighter grey. As I go here, it gets much easier to see what needs to go where because I've already marked it in with those lighter pencils. And then I can start moving on to a really quite dark brown to fill in the deeper shadows, particularly on the red section. And actually I can use this same brown to start filling in some of the more mid-tones on the sack here. And as I work down the colours, towards the end here, I am actually going to go back to the black pencil. So although I've already marked in all of these areas previously with the black pencil, I was adding it in quite lightly because I just wanted to get an idea of what needs to go where. Now that I've worked from those lighter colours towards the darker colours and I'm confident where the black needs to go, I can start using more like a medium pressure to block it in a bit firmer. However, the more that I add in the black areas, I would say the more muted the red areas look, but that's okay. We can brighten all of that up. Now, before I move on, I'm just going to draw in the snow at the bottom. Just with the grey pencil, I want to block in a nice smooth area down the bottom here, and then add in a little bit of texture with the darker grey. I don't need it to be absolutely perfect along the bottom here. It isn't the main focal point, but I do want Santa to be standing on something. So let's now brighten everything back up, and I want to work through those same colours, going from the darker colours towards the lighter colours. So I'm using quite a dark red here to go over all of these very dark areas before moving on to more of a mid-tone red to go over those same darkest areas, kind of smooth them out a little bit and start to go over some of the mid-tones. I can also use really quite a vibrant red as I start getting lighter. And then the last thing I want to do is go over the lightest areas with the pink. Even the lightest areas on this Santa aren't as light as I have them at the moment. And then at this point, although I will still need to tweak these red areas a little bit further, it's looking much better. Let's go back over all of the grey section. So starting with the darker grey, filling in this in any area that I think needs to be deeper. And now that it's darker in the red area, and we've got all of those deepest colours with the black, for example, it's much easier to see where we need to add more of this grey. And then I can move on to the mid-tone grey here before going back to the lightest grey and to smooth anything out. Now let's just use the white pencil to smooth out some of the lightest areas. Because this is a Lego Santa, he needs to look like plastic. I want to make it as smooth as possible. Some of the lightest areas are looking a little bit grainy, but I can't smooth them out with the pink pencil, for example, because it will look too light. So I can apply some medium to firm pressure, I would say, with the white pencil, and it's not making the area very light, but it's also not making it darker, which is what I'm looking for right now. You can see how much that's smoothing out these lightest areas. Let's also use the white pencil to smooth out some of the lighter sections on the beard. Again, it's not making the beard lighter, but it is just smoothing out those light sections. If I was to go really firmly over these areas with the light grey, I think it would make it all a little bit too dark. And then I can do exactly the same with the sack here. So working my way through not only with the browns, but actually I'm going to add a little bit of red where I think it needs to be more of a reddish brown, but a brighter reddish brown. I don't have a colour like that, so I can use the same red that I used on the body. That's very much looking like a reflection from the Santa suit. And I can in fact see some areas of grey on here, so I'm going to add this in as well before smoothing out once again with the white on those lightest areas. So now at this point I'm generally happy with the Santa. What I want to do now is add in any final tweaks. So I'm thinking about any final things that I think would improve this drawing. So let's go back to this particularly dark brown, really make the darkest areas pop a little bit more, and also go back to the most vibrant red. I want to brighten everything up. It's looking a little bit maybe too pink, and I want to make it more of a vibrant red. And finally, let's smooth out some last areas with this kind of reddish brown. And then that is it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I think it is such a fun little drawing, and it's not too long either, which is nice. Now I have done a number of Christmas drawings. If you want to check out another one, check out this one here. Happy drawing, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.